Eye of the Sports Guy.
The Sports Guy.
This is important. It's top secret for your eyes only.
Just to set the record straight, they did not rope me into doing a podcast. I actually was excited to have one once I found out that you did not have to leave your house.
Now, Eye of the Sports Guy.
Here's the Sports Guy, Bill Simmons.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Bill Simmons here on ESPN Radio. This is Eye of the Sports Guy. You know me from my magazine column and my page 2 column on ESPN.com. And this is my second podcast. Still trying to figure out this whole podcast thing. I was trying to explain it to my dad the other day, like that people could listen to it at work. And he was like, well, why wouldn't they be working? Why would you listen to a radio show at work? And then I said, well, you can download it and then listen to it on your way home on your iPod or listen to it on the subway. And he was like, well, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just read the newspaper? You know, this whole podcast thing, it's still catching on. But the surprising thing was that a lot of people downloaded the first one, although I think it was just the sex appeal of Mark Stein. But anyway, we're going to have some good guests over the course of the summer. Hopefully some big names. We'll see what happens. All right, for my guest for the second podcast, you know him from Loveline and The Man Show. You know him from his morning radio show on Free FM. And eventually, you'll know him for his boxing movie, The Hammer. Adam Carolla, welcome to the show.
Bill, great to be part of the program this morning.
You're one of the biggest boxing fans I know. I had to get your take on Mayweather, De La Hoya, which, in my opinion, was a glorified 12-round sparring session. What did you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem is everyone's a businessman now, you know? I mean, back in the day, these guys made money, but they weren't businessmen. They were like warriors first and businessmen second. And as a matter of fact, they just had short, fat white guys that handled that and probably didn't even give them any of the money. Marvin Hagler wasn't fighting Tommy Hearns for the money. Oscar De La Hoya is an entrepreneur. He's a businessman, and businessmen don't like to get punched in the head. At least that's my experience.
You don't think John the Beast Mugabe was an entrepreneur?
No, he was not. I mean, he's got the word the Beast as his middle name. His parents had to know he was going to be a boxer.
Did they put that on the birth certificate for him, like with Marvelous Marvin Hagler when he changed his name?
Well, Marvelous technically got it changed to Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and then Tommy Hearns was not only the hitman Tommy Hearns, but he was the Cobra. He was the Motor City Cobra, and by the way, that's not good enough. You're the Motor City Cobra, and that's not instilling enough fear in your opponent, so you got to switch it to the hitman.
Yeah, the thing that worried me about this fight was that De La Hoya was guaranteed $45 million, and Mayweather was guaranteed $20. And at this point, these boxers are smart enough to know that they don't need to risk their lives to get their money. I don't know if it was the case 30 years ago, but shouldn't we at least make these guys fight for the balance of the purse?
Well, I mean, there's no motivator like money. This is why the former Soviet Union is falling apart as we speak. It just doesn't work when you eliminate the money. And, yeah, that's how boxing used to work. I mean, half the boxers, you know, in the 20s were Jews, for sake. These were people that were immigrants and they were hungry. Now, not a whole lot of Jews who are boxing because they're educated and they make money and there's no longer the hunger involved. So you eliminate the hunger part and you eliminate the great knockouts and the bloodbaths that we all long to see.
Well,
so,
also, if you're a great athlete, what would be the incentive for you to box? Why wouldn't you just go to one of the team sports where you're not going to end up slurring your speech when you're 50?
Well, the good news is De La Hoya gets to be eloquent, doesn't get his nose broken, and still gets $40 million to stuff in his mattress. So maybe that is the motivator for people now. I don't know, but I agree there needs to be an incentive, and if they gave everyone 50% of their purse and then put the other 50% in the pot, they'd have something to fight for in the 12th round.
I have to say that the thing that's bothered me throughout De La Hoya's career is he could be a little more upset when he loses. Just a little. At least look peeved.
I would defy most people to look at a De La Hoya fight just with the pre-fight or the post-fight interview and tell me whether he won or lost. I don't think there's a difference. I don't personally know it if there is.
Yeah, I feel like he's playing an elaborate practical joke on everybody because he's going to clear about $250 million. He probably took, 15 really hard punches throughout the course of his career, including the body punch from Hopkins. But no fighter is ever going to escape boxing with more money and less damage.
I know. I know. It saddens me. And he's going to be one of these guys who no one even believes was a fighter. I mean, the beautiful thing about ex-fighters is you know who they are. They walk around like Joe Frazier and call everyone champ. And they have like a cauliflower ear, and their nose is bent, and they look like Burgess Meredith. He's going to look like, what were you, in Menudo in the 80s? How'd you make your billions of dollars?
What did you think of the 24/7 show that HBO is running? I thought it was genius just because it really got me excited for the fight, and it even got somebody like my wife excited for the fight who normally wouldn't have cared, but after watching 3 episodes decided she had a crush on Oscar and was excited to pay-per-view it. Do you think we're going to see more of that in the future?
Well, don't kid yourself, Bill. Boxing is a business. In fact, it's big business. Do you hate blowhards that do that? Like you had been kidding yourself about boxing?
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that works you're going to see again, and you're going to see duplicated, and I'm sure if the show got ratings and it garnered interest in the pay-per-view, you will definitely see it again. And it was smart, and it is one of these things, too, where you swear you're not going to buy into it, and then you start, and then there's one shoving match at one press conference, and you're in.
What did you think of Roger Mayweather compared to Flava Flav and some of the other reality greats? Do you see him like a VH1 dating show, maybe? Where do you see him headed?
I see him possibly on the QVC with his own line of jewelry. I think the sky's the limit for that cat. I mean, anytime you're sporting the dreads with the balding, male pattern baldness, and you just look like a bad caricature of your former self. Like, he actually, I've never really thought of this, but you know how Patrick Swayze's brother looks more like Patrick Swayze than Patrick Swayze? Don Swayze looks more like he looks like an evil cartoon of Patrick Swayze.
He looks like Patrick Swayze after like one of those Mark Hamill car accidents. And then they reconstructed his face to make him look like Patrick Swayze.
Right, he looks like Patrick Swayze, like, you know when they do the plastic surgery and the plastic surgeon takes a Sharpie and draws on the person's face? Which, by the way, wouldn't instill a lot of confidence in me if the guy took a Sharpie to my face. Like, there's some sort of surgical tool for this. But he looks like when they draw the picture on the 50-year-old chick's face and said, we're going to get rid of the crow's feet and then we're going to get rid of the laugh lines. It looks like they took a Sharpie to Swayze, and that's what Don Swayze looks like. I am saying that Mayweather looks more like Mayweather now than he did when he was in his fighting prime. He looks, but an evil cartoon version of himself.
You know, I'm kind of jealous of the Patrick Swayze, Don Swayze thing. I think it would be cool to have a cartoon version of yourself who's less successful. Like, you know, your self-esteem would be through the roof.
And then everyone has to stop you all the time and go, Patrick Swayze? And then you go, no, Don Swayze, and hang your head. And is there a third Swayze brother?
They probably had him killed.
There should be somebody in between Patrick and Don. They're two extremes of the Swayze. I'd like to hang with the middle Swayze. Sean Swayze.
Sean Swayze, that's good. You know, I one more boxing question, just because, you know, I was critical of the fight in my column, and there's this faction of boxing fans that are so hardcore, and they'll just defend boxing to the death. And you ever notice these elitist boxing fans where, like, I didn't like the Mayweather De La Hoya fight because I didn't appreciate boxing, and I didn't appreciate the skills that those guys displayed.
The sweet signs, those guys punching the other guy.
Yeah, don't those guys drive you crazy? I think that's the worst thing about boxing, are the elitist boxing fans.
Well, yeah, they do it. They always come out when, you know, it's like watching Chris Bird fight. Like, nobody watches boxing because we want a lesson on graceful movement. We want to see stupid guys punching the bejesus out of each other. That's why, by the way, all the great fights throughout history have guys punching the bejesus out of each other. There's no great fight. It wasn't like, oh, man, how about Ward Gotti #1, where they didn't punch each other, but they both, well, it was a ballet of movement. It was a wonderful display. Any young boxer should take note here. No, it was a bloodbath in the center of the ring.
Yeah.
That's what we want, and they're just sort of making an excuse for a boring fight when they say that.
Well, I do think boxing, we both have to admit, as much as we love boxing, and, you know, you can't argue with the pay-per-view numbers. They did over 2 million for Mayweather De La Hoya, but at the same time, I think the UFC has just gained a ton of steam, and it's better promoted, it's better packaged. They have one pay-per-view every month that has 4 to 5 quality fights. Do you see the UFC passing boxing?
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how you judge passing. I mean, attendance or ratings or money made every year. For all I know, maybe it's past it already. I mean, maybe the UFC has made more money this year than boxing has. Aside from the De La Hoya Mayweather fight, I don't know of any huge boxing fight that's even taken place this year, or maybe that's even coming up, that has captured people's imaginations. Meanwhile, the Octagon and other mixed martial arts venues has probably had 20 fights by now.
Right.
So I don't know. In a weird way, maybe it's surpassed it. And another way, maybe it's like comparing football and soccer. Maybe they're just two different things, and there's room for both. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I was on ESPN's First Take. I happened to be flipping channels this morning. They had Winky Wright and Bernard Hopkins on, trying to pump up interest for their fight next month. And I'm thinking, I love boxing. I have plenty of money to spend on pay-per-views. Wild horses could not convince me to pay-per-view this fight. I can't think of a worse fight than Hopkins versus Winky Wright, and this is the marquee fight of June.
I personally, to me, the thing that would bring boxing back is the Klitschko brothers
Right.
going at it. Blood brothers would be
Right.
the thing. And it would start off as they promised they would never fight each other, and then it gets into a shoving match, and one's yelling, "Mom always liked me best," and it would be, and then the mom gets between them, and she's pleading and crying, "Don't go through with this," in her native tongue, in like some kind of broken English. She's wearing a peasant smock. I mean, this would bring boxing back. This would be the kind of fight we would love to see. This is going to be the only salvation for boxing.
Yeah, I actually wrote about boxing, and I gave you credit, but I did mention that whole Klitschko idea. But I think the one component you're missing is Don King hiring them a hooker, and the hooker gets between them. One brother thinks the hooker likes him, and the other, and then it just all hell breaks loose. And I think you need that woman at ringside. You don't know who she's rooting for. She's kind of evil, but not really.
Right.
I mean, that push her over the top.
Yeah, well, what's her name? Brigitte
Nielsen.
Brigitte Nielsen. Dust her off.
And she's kind of the same size as the Klitschko brothers.
She's a little bigger.
Hey, where do you stand on Larry Merchant at age 76? Still as the number one analyst on these big pay-per-views.
He is an auctioneer who ate a jar of Quaaludes and washed it down with some lantern oil. I think he got used to talking to punch-drunk boxers for so long that he thinks he's talking to a punch-drunk audience. It is kind of nice, though, because it's like normally you have to wait for a commercial to run out of the room, go get another beer, use the bathroom. With Larry, you can do it between syllables.
Right.
He'll be like, Evander, and you can get up, take a leak, grab a beer, and come back before he says Holyfield.
You know, the one thing I love is he always has the one joke ready to go for every fight. And in the 12th round of this last fight, he said, Cinco de Mayo has turned into Mayweather. And Lampley never knows how to react. It's always followed by dead silence and Lampley just being confused and then changing the subject. It's fantastic. Hey, speaking of changing the subject, you're friends with a lot of Boston fans, and you've been giving us a lot of. What happened?
Ran out of battery power.
Sorry, we just had a little technical difficulties. This whole podcast thing's fantastic. Adam came over to my house, actually recorded this, putting on the one headphone. So he's using my house phone and calling in, but there was an echo. So I gave him this phone, and he's been wandering outside my house, and then the phone just ran out of batteries. And as Adam pointed out, this is highly unusual.
I just stepped in cat bill. You're going to have to pay for the dry cleaning of my K-Swiss.
I apologize for that. You're friends with a lot of Boston fans, and the Boston fans kind of drive you crazy a little bit. I'm giving you 1 minute to vent.
Okay, thank you. Here's the dangerous part about the Bostonians. See, I'm from North Hollywood. We have stupid, racist guys that are loudmouths, but they can't string together a sentence because of their lack of education. For some reason, there's some convergence in the Boston area of super smart, highly educated loudmouths. Now, you don't normally find the same guy living under the same hat with a B on it, but in Boston it's there, and I realized firsthand how evil these people were when my Rams lost to them, a very lucky field goal in the last second of their first Super Bowl win, and I was at a sports bar afterward, and there was nothing but Boston fans not celebrating, not Patriot fans celebrating, seeking out Rams fans to verbally assault them. That's how they celebrate. As a matter of fact, you want to torture a bunch of Boston fans, just leave them alone in a bar with none of the fans of the team they just vanquished, and they'll all implode on each other. Eventually, they'll just turn into a big fist fight.
I have no defense. I really don't.
But really, it is an interesting convergence of super high intelligence meets super evil. See, they're like evil geniuses. I'm used to hanging out with guys from the Valley who are just a henchman. They're just a muscle. They're not the bald guy petting the Persian cat with designs on ruling the world like the Boston fans. They're just the muscle guys that are misguided because they had a troubled youth.
Yeah, and probably the worst thing that happened was the Patriots winning a Super Bowl, and then another one, and then another one, and then the Red Sox winning the World Series, because it kind of removed our lovable underdog status, and I'll tell you, I find it hard to defend.
I must say, when the Patriots beat my Rams, the Rams had just won a Super Bowl the year before, and I thought, that's nice. The Patriots have been struggling they haven't been to the show in a while, and they have a few Super Bowl losses, and it's actually nice to see them get the win versus, I don't know, some team like the Raiders or the Cowboys or some team, or the Steelers, God forbid, or some team that already had a handful of Super Bowl rings. I'm now taking it back.
Well, you're one of the only other people I know besides myself who watches cable movies that drive them crazy, specifically to be driven crazy by the movie. Yeah. I think it's really you and me and like two other people.
It's a lot. It's really there's two types of people walking around. There's a type of person that has a sensitive tooth, so they stay away from it, and then there's the type of person that has a sensitive tooth, so they flick it with their tongue all day. Just to feel that pain, as if it wasn't going to come again. We do that with movies. Right.
So what movie is out there right now that is just in the rotation and driving you crazy?
I've been watching all the Fast and Furious trilogy because Vin Diesel.
It's like the Ali Frazier trilogy.
Yes, Vin Diesel lives his life a quarter mile at a time, I found out. We've been watching the Tokyo Drift just to find out how they do it over there. I've been watching Armageddon, where Bruce Willis has to take his team of ragtag oil drillers up to the moon to blow up the meteor that's hurtling toward Earth. That's a good one. At a certain point, I'm in on any movie when the guy says to the official, "Why me?" and the guy replies, "Because you're the best." At one point in my life, that's all I want. Just some guy with sunglasses, wearing a suit and carrying an attaché case to come up my driveway, say he needs me to do something, and when I ask him, "Why me?" he explains to me, "Because, Carolla, you're the best."
Well, that's what when we went to see Shooter a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
And that really hit all the fundamental plots that you want from your action movie. Mark Wahlberg, a highly regarded sniper.
No one else could do this.
He was the best. The mission went wrong. Then they always go into hiding. They have no money coming in, but somehow they're in a cabin or they're like just doing construction, and it doesn't really matter that they don't have this government job anymore. But then they get roped back in.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there ever a movie, whether it's us trying to get Mark Wahlberg to turn the hat on backwards and take the shot, or whether it's you or anyone else asking out a beautiful woman on a date, is there ever an instance where they accept the first offer? Meaning they come up the dirt road, they say to Wahlberg, you're the best. We need you to come back. Is there ever a movie where before the guy finishes his sentence, Wahlberg goes, I'm in. What do you need me to do, fellas? What do you got?
Well, we should probably come up with one. And speaking of movie ideas, you're relatively famous.
I do have an idea, by the way.
Yeah, you have a movie pitch, and I'm going to let you do it here on the ESPN.com podcast, Eye of the Sports Guy. Go ahead.
Well, I have two.
You have two?
First one, it's called the second to last heist. I get the old group back together, and we do two more heists. This is the second to last one.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a little twist on the one more job. One more heist. I get the best demolition guy, the best second story man, the best face man, the best computer hacker, and we do two more heists. This is the one before our last one.
So it's almost like a reverse sequel.
That's right. We never filmed the last one.
Interesting.
Come on, fellas, I'm getting it back together for just two more times.
Do Pedophile.
Oh, Pedophile, yeah. Wow. You know, I didn't even like talking about that, A, because I don't want to jinx it, and B, you know, it's getting some pretty good heat here in Hollywood. So I don't even know if I can talk about it, but here goes. First off, it's Pedophile.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like an island filled with pedophiles. The year is 2027 and a half. It's June 2027. They rarely get into fractions, but I'm that specific. You know,
okay.
somewhere June, middle of June 2027. Now, of course, with the Catch a Predator and all this stuff, people are well aware of the problem we have with pedophiles. But what to do with these people? Chemical castration? Lock them up? Well, you can't lock a guy up for 100 years who never committed a murder. What do we do with these people? Pedophile. One of the Hawaiian Islands. One of the ones with the volcanoes. And by the way, do we need a Hawaii and a Kauai? It's very confusing.
I
agree.
know
what I mean? Like, how many people said, hey, yeah, no, I'm over on Kauai, pick me up, and the people showed up on Hawaii?
It's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? Let's go ahead and separate them. It's a big hassle for the people that went. You know, it's like we don't have a Burbank airport and a Burbank airport.
Excellent point.
It'd be very confusing. Let's say we'll get rid of Kauai. We'll call it Adamsburg or something. But the point is these guys are on a Hawaiian island, and everyone has been thrown off the island, and the world takes its pedophiles and it leaves them on the island, kind of like what they did on Devil's Island with Papillon.
Well, I was going to say Escape from New York is another example.
Escape from New York, that's right. I'd love to see Escape from New York again, because it'd be like, the year is 1989. Manhattan has become a maximum security prison. Like, did you guys do the math? You can't hop ahead 3 years.
It was a little ambitious.
Right. All right. So it's the year 2027 and a half, mid-June. One of the Kauai, the confusing Kauai, has become pedophile. The world has dropped its pedophiles off, and they're living there off the fat of land, and they've broken off into tribes. You know, you got the French pedophiles and the Australian pedophiles, and you got the tops and the bottoms. I don't know. You know, I'm just riffing here. Now, the governments don't acknowledge pedophile. This is a secret little plan where they dump the pedophiles.
I always like that when they have that wrinkle where the government pretends it doesn't exist. It's always
seems to be a lot of them disavowing all knowledge of in any good. That's, by the way, any movie where somebody is pronounced the best at something, a minute later someone explains to them if they got caught, the government will not recognize their existence. So the government has disavowed all knowledge of pedophiles. They're living there like, basically Lord of the Rings for old dudes in loincloths running around, feuding tribes. Now, a seaplane filled with Cub Scouts is coming back from a jamboree in Tahiti.
Right.
And I don't draw maps for a living. We'll work it out. The plane is flying over the Hawaiian Islands. In the plane, 38 Cub Scouts, ages 7 to 11, and the Cub Scout leader and his son. Who's his son? Think Jared Leto type.
Right.
Got to play younger. He's a 18-year-old former Eagle Scout that has turned his back on scouting and is now basically gone goth. His dad, knowing that there's still an Eagle Scout, if he could just break through to his troubled teen, has forced him to come along begrudgingly on this last jamboree. He's just sitting there with his his little earbuds in, listening to Korn the whole time, wearing his black duster. Wants nothing to do with the Scouts. Well, the plane goes down on Pedophile.
Ugh.
Now, the dad, killed, trapped under the wreckage, telling the young son, the former Eagle Scout, this is your troop to lead. That's the last thing we see before his hand drops and there's a bloody merit badge for leadership or something under it.
I love when the guy is trapped under the wreckage but still finds enough time to give the inspiring monologue.
Right,
it's
long-winded, inspired monologue. Think Dennis Quaid type.
Gotcha.
Think Quaid type. All right, now the pedophiles smelling fresh blood. These people haven't seen a kid in underoos in a fortnight. All of a sudden, there's fresh blood on Pedophile are all converging on the plane crash. Well, the boys have to head to the hills, led by the reluctant former Eagle Scout now, who's forced to take a leadership role. Now, lots of stuff going on. First, there's the side story of the one sort of misfit scout who could never get his merit badge for tying a special sheepshank knot.
He's got a weight problem.
But he's forced. See, all the kids are forced to rely on their scouting and all the things they've learned about living in the wild and tying knots and, carving, first aid and all that stuff. They're forced to use all that. The one fat kid, though, can't keep up. He's using an inhaler. By the way, you see someone go for an inhaler, he's dust. Halfway into the first act, right? Fat kid with inhaler never sees the end of the movie.
No, it's like pulling out what I'm trying to think of a good example. It's like seeing the Grim Reaper.
Right. You see that inhaler's as good as a sickle.
My stuttering didn't just knock off your plot recap, did it?
No.
Okay, good.
No, I'm fired up.
All right.
Fat kid with the inhaler lagging behind is taken. Just literally a wave of pedophiles wash over him. We hear the muffled screams above the canopy of the forest with the birds flying away.
Right, but we don't see it. We just see the birds flying away.
We don't see. We know what's going on. A couple of the scouts stop and look over the shoulder, but Jared Leto, playing the Eagle Scout, yells, "We got to keep moving. What's behind us is pedophiles. What's in front of us is freedom."
You
hear that, Bill?
Yeah, I like that. I think Jared Leto's too old for this, though. I think you need to look at David Faustino from Married with Children.
Faustino?
Yeah.
I don't know if we could get Faustino, but a Faustino type.
Okay.
We get a Faustino type in there, and he leads these. Now they got now. Oh, here's the thing. Michael Biehn. Is it Bain or Bean?
Michael Biehn from Terminator.
Michael Biehn. Now he plays the ex-Navy SEAL who knows what's going on and wants to go in. His brother was on that plane.
Right.
He wants to go in with his guys and extract the kids. But the man, and there's always got to be some guy who's like a gin blossom, who's wearing a three-piece suit and holding a brandy snifter. Think Ned Beatty type. Ned Beatty says, no, you can't go on that island. That island doesn't exist.
And there you go. That's
Michael Bain says he does, and he goes in with a Zodiac. He recruits his own SEAL team and goes in under cover of darkness on his own.
Wait, Ace, you can't give away the ending.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that was good. You know, I'm glad you mentioned Ned Beatty because I think he needs to be on the other side of these things more often because everybody still remembers Deliverance 35 years from now. Hey, we got to wrap this up, but before we go, your movie, The Hammer, tell us a little bit about it. No, your movie, The Hammer.
Don't stop me, Bill. I'm on a roll.
No, we got to move on. We're running out of time here. Your movie, The Hammer.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
A wild success at Tribeca.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, everybody loved it.
I know. They mainly loved it because they thought it was going to suck.
Well, you know, that did work in your favor, though, because you had the whole thing where people were pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
which is a great thing.
It was like you getting set up, like your sister set you up with one of her traditionally ugly friends, and her name is Bernice, and it turns out she's a solid 7.5, but you're through the moon because you're expecting a 3.
Right.
That's the Hammer, moviegoers.
Well, give us like a 30-second synopsis of the movie.
Think the last Rocky Balboa old guy goes into the boxing ring, but even older in the sense that I'm not older than Balboa, but I'm going back to the amateurs. So it's Olympic boxing with the old white guy and the young Olympic hopefuls. Comedy ensues, and good reviews, and you can go to AdamCarolla.com and find out any information about it. We'll probably and hopefully going to be at a theater near you very soon.
So it's like a cross between Rocky and the Rookie. Rocky
meets the Rookie.
And you wrote the movie with our buddy Hench.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
It was good. Hench is a smart guy, knows a lot about sports, and I think we're pretty simpatico during the entire process. So it was pleasurable.
Well, I'm rooting for you. For me, the most disturbing part of the movie was when you kissed Hench's wife. I actually put my shirt over my head, and the muffled screams along the lines of Pedophile. How weird was it to kiss the wife of one of your best friends?
It's one of these things where it's weird just to kiss somebody you don't really know who's in a movie with you in the first place, and then it's weirder when her husband is standing just behind the sound guy's cart, so it made it extra weird. But if you do a job, you'll just keep doing it again, so you may as well just throw the tongue down the throat and do it so that you can get it and move on.
So it hasn't been awkward since then.
You know, it was awkward, and if he hadn't been so encouraging, it would have been really awkward. But he was like, "Go sick on her."
Well, I feel awkward that he was encouraging. Anyway, so tell us one last thing. Your radio show, it's on Free FM. Tell us the markets that your radio show's in.
The markets are Arizona, Vegas, Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, Palm Springs, San Francisco, San Diego, and maybe I'm forgetting a couple, Fresno. Go to AdamCarolla.com and you can just listen on the web. Many people do.
Yeah, you do. You put a lot of those clips for download and stuff, so that's pretty cool.
Can listen. You can stream the whole show. We have millions of minutes of streaming every month, so you can be amongst those people if you go to AdamCarolla.com.
Cool. It's kind of like you could stream this podcast.
There you
can download it on iTunes. Adam Carolla, thank you so much for being the second guest on Eye of the Sports Guy.
Bill, it was a pleasure pacing your filthy yard.
Thank you.
If you like this edition of Eye of the Sports Guy, check out more ESPN radio podcasts available at the iTunes Music Store and on PodCenter at ESPNRadio.com.